Welcome into Hockey Sense. What's happening, everybody? Happy Friday to you. Our Friday tradition rolls on here at Half Coast Studios, brought to you by First Community. We are close to the Stanley Cup Final, which means we're close to the NHL Draft. And I've been telling you the last couple of weeks because I hear the messages, I see them. I mean, even when you're chirping me, I see those, but I see the good ones. I try to think about the positive. I see all the positive ones and appreciate all the support that we're getting here on Hockey Sense. I think it's great. It's fantastic. So much support over the years on radio. We've brought it to the podcast platform here at Half Coast Studios, and I feel like more and more of you each and every week are finding us and remembering that we've taken it now to the podcast format. There's a lot of dinosaurs out there. You know, they get fixated in their own routine. They're used to listening to everything on radio, and then when it's taken off radio, they don't know how to find you. So the younger generation, help them out. If you have somebody who you know, a friend, a family member, and they're not familiar with the podcast platform because all they do is listen to the radio, they're dinosaurs. Help them out. Show them how to get to Hockey Sense. We're glad to have you. But I have been listening because everyone wants to hear about the draft. You want to get into the draft. We had Darren Dreger on last week. He kind of dropped that bombshell about the Blues trying to move up into the draft. I think I had said during Cam and Strick that Anaheim and St. Louis had talked around the trade deadline. There was a potential blockbuster. I don't believe the player was ever approached by St. Louis to waive their no trade to go to Anaheim because I don't think it ever got that far, but we'll see if conversations pick back up between Anaheim and St. Louis. I know Drager mentioned that last week as well. Great conversation with him. Jason Bukala. So I've heard everybody's request. They want to get into the draft, and I said, let's wait a few more weeks. Let's get closer to June, and here we are. Jason Bukala, a longtime scout with Nashville and most recently, the Florida Panthers. He's been working with Sportsnet up in Canada, Sportsnet Television, all their platforms. He's their draft guru, and he's been compiling the list, the rankings, and all of that for the upcoming 2026 NHL entry draft. So, listen, no better person to get on, man. There's a couple of really good ones. He's in that category. Certainly follows it very closely, follows the U18s, the under-20s, and now you have draft-eligible players playing in the World Championships. Feels like more and more of those players are participating in the Worlds, the men's Worlds, each and every spring. So we'll get his take. The last rankings I saw from Bukala is that he had Stenberg ahead of Gavin McKenna. And if you remember, several weeks ago, we've had other draft analysts on here, too, who have also said Stenberg would be their number one. So I'm wondering where we're headed with this. I mean, there was an interview yesterday on Overdrive on TSN. Love those boys, man. Everybody hazy. Hayes is a fraud. Noodles, O-Dog, man, they do an unbelievable job. Great stuff each and every day. And I love it. But, I mean, they had Gavin McKenna on the show. I don't know if it was Overdrive or what it was, but it was with O-Dog, who's out there covering the Memorial Cup for TSN. And they were interviewing McKenna, and it almost seems like it's a foregone conclusion that Toronto was going to take McKenna. Is the risk too high to overlook him, to not select him? I think maybe that's what it comes down to a little bit. I mean, listen, you got to be careful. If you're going to have the first overall pick, you better pick the right guy. You got to get that one right. Other selections, listen, there's always a risk involved. And there's a risk involved when you have the first overall pick. But at the same time, you got to get that one right. So is McKenna the safest pick? Or is Stenberg really a safer pick than McKenna? I mean, you're relying on McKenna's offensive skills, his overall upside offensively. He's a center. And, you know, you're just relying on his skill level to basically allow him to evolve into a franchise-type player, whereas Stenberg probably brings a little more of an all-around game, a little more naturally instinctive defensively, and maybe he's the safer pick, even though there's a lot of offensive upside with Stenberg too. And then you get into a couple of defensemen. You have Malhotra, who's a center, who played in the OHL this past season. I don't know, man. It's he played with Brantford, by the way. Jay McKee was his head coach. Big shout out to Jay McKee. Adam Yurasek played on that team. A number of great players. They had a great run. They lost, I believe, in the third round, maybe the OHL championship. Trying to remember. I think it was the third round of the OHL playoffs. That's when the coach, remember, from Sarnia came out and looked like a complete idiot with his comments in the post game. He and Aitchison, they wouldn't answer questions, and then they got swept the next round. See, that's what happens. You act like that, then you get swept. And the coach, I know he came out and apologized, but I think he certainly put a dent in his reputation as he's going to continue to try to move up the ranks. But big shout out to Jay McKee. I've been talking to him a lot over the years, really following his coaching career. Got to know him when he played here in St. Louis, man. Really enjoyed being around him when he was a player. He was a big free agent signing for the Blues at the time. He signed a 4-year, $16 million deal. I remember writing before they signed him that he would be the most coveted defenseman coming out of the Eastern Conference. He was really making a name for himself. Buffalo had a run. This guy's blocking shots, sacrificing the body every single shift, and really got a lot of people's attention, including the Blues, obviously, who ended up signing him just a few weeks later when free agency began. And then the Blues bought him out. The Blues haven't had a buyout. He may be the last buyout the Blues have had. Technically, Doug Armstrong has never had a buyout. You can maybe look at a guy like Brandon Saad as a buyout, Matthew Joseph as a buyout, Alex Texier as a buyout. But those contracts were just terminated, so they didn't even have to buy him out. They just got rid of him. And Texier does his thing with Montreal in the playoffs. Got to be careful with that. I know it's easy to say, how could the Blues do that? I will say this about Texier, man. I loved watching this kid practice. I mean, if you went to the rink and you didn't know who anybody was, I mean, you would walk out and being like, wow, that guy really caught my attention. He's just super skilled. He scores a lot in practice. He's exciting to watch in, rush drills where they're making plays off the rush. I mean, he's got that natural skill. And he was a good fit for what they were doing in Montreal, and we'll see if that can continue to evolve, if his role can continue to evolve there in Montreal, and if they stick with him moving forward. I know they re-signed him, so now we'll see what happens beyond this next season or two for Texier. But I'm happy for Texier. Great kid. But he has some issues here. He was dealing with some stuff, and it really prevented him from really taking off and establishing himself as a go-to player or a regular contributor here with the Blues. So I like Texier. Matthew Joseph, again, played in the playoffs with the LA Kings. He's an NHL player. Is he the player that he needs to be to continue to play in the National Hockey League? I think that's what it comes down to for a guy like Joseph. You got to understand who you are, and you got to be that guy and consistently play with a level of intelligence that's required on winning hockey teams. And, he made some mistakes where the Blues got scored on late in games. It was tough for him to avoid being at the scene of the crime. It was just so obvious when you watch the replay of some of these games, which really cost the Blues. I mean, the Blues were losing these tight games down the stretch, last-minute goals they were giving up. Dallas comes to mind. There's a couple of other ones, man, where he just didn't execute the play that was drawn up coming out of a timeout or coming off of an icing or whatever it was. And so patience wore thin. The Blues have some younger players. They want to get those guys up in the lineup, and so some of these guys had to move on. Brandon Saad, he was a good player for the Blues, man. He's still a good player for Vegas. I think they did Saad a favor. He's an NHL player. Has been for a long time and a really good one. And I don't think the intention was to embarrass him and be like, hey, we're just going to send you down to the American League, and now you're going to have no choice. You just have to go down there and play. No. They did him a solid. They terminated his deal. They allowed him to go find another contract, probably even before the contract was terminated, just to know that he had an NHL job. And he's doing a nice job for Vegas. He's not scoring at the clip that he once did, and he never will again, probably in the NHL, but he can still skate and he can still get there, get in on the forecheck, and obviously be a responsible player. So all these guys the Blues have moved on from, they've all found jobs in the NHL and found roles on teams that allow them to have an impact and contribute on a regular basis. I just find that interesting, how it's all played out. There's a lot of people that hated on Matthew Joseph, that hated on Texier. You got to find the good in some of these guys. Not everyone's going to be Ryan O'Reilly. Not everyone is going to be, Robert Thomas. And so we always look for the negative in certain players. And I know in the case of Matthew Joseph, listen, he's not a perfect player. There's a lot of deficiencies in his game. And some people just get so hung up on the negative. Negative, 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 negative. But when you can skate like he can, this guy got chances all the time just because of his skating. Kind of reminded me of Ryan Johnson from back in the day. Although RJ played way more reckless and sacrificed his body way more than Matthew Joseph did. Way more physical. Probably a smarter player, RJ was. RJ would just block shots with his face if he had to. So, anyway, big shout out to Jay McKee, by the way, getting up to the American League now. He's going to coach the Islanders American League team in Hamilton, which is a new team. So, exciting things happening. We're going to talk draft, man. We got a lot of stuff to get into. I know people are kind of curious about some, prospect, not even prospect, but restricted free agent news for the Blues. One guy that I'm paying attention to is Jonathan Berggren. And I don't believe any real conversations have started as of yet. I think those will happen soon. The Blues are expected to have meetings taking place up in Niagara very, very soon. After those meetings, I think they'll come out of those meetings and those conversations will really start picking up and get serious. But I hope Berggren gets an opportunity to come back, man. He's a great guy to have around the room, great personality, doesn't complain. And when he's in the game, this guy can make plays. And he's an NHL player too. And you got him for nothing. When you get a player like him for nothing, off waivers, it's like we saw with Kapanen a few years back. All of a sudden, Kapanen scoring goals in the playoffs for the Edmonton Oilers. He came to St. Louis right off the bat. He was making plays, and he looked like he belonged. And he could be a part of things moving forward. And then that kind of fizzled out. But again, he's found a role in Edmonton where they need players. They just don't have a whole lot of depth. Edmonton doesn't make sense to me anyway, just in terms of how that whole roster is constructed. I would expect to hear some coaching news coming up very, very soon. Toronto, Jay Woodcroft, obviously his name is out there. David Carl's name is out there. I'm going to stand by the fact that I don't think Carl is going to leave. I think if you're David Carl, why not just chill until like San Jose opens up? I mean, obviously, if Colorado were to open up, and it's in your hometown and you love Denver that much, then maybe you don't want to leave. Although I don't know if Colorado is set up to be great. I don't know how much longer they're set up to be great is my point. How long is that window going to stay open for Colorado? I keep talking about that. And as long as you have McCarr and McKinnon, listen, they're going to be good. They got Natchez, obviously. I love the role players they have on that team with Ross Colton and Parker Kelly and Drury and Lekin and all these guys, man. They got a good supporting cast. I'm shocked to see them. Absolutely shocked, like everybody else, to see them get swept by Vegas. But Vegas has become the standard, man. They're the best organization going in hockey. I don't think there's any question. As much as it pains me to say that sometimes, they are the top dog in the NHL. And we'll see if they can finish it off and win the Stanley Cup. It's going to be a tough out for Carolina if Carolina can get rid of Montreal here. Tonight is Game 5, so here's an opportunity for Montreal to leave the party, Carolina to move on. Carolina's the real deal, too. They've lost one game here in the playoffs. They're unbelievable. The one game they lost was following an extensive layoff, and they just probably weren't ready, man. They were rusty, but they got it together pretty quickly. They've won some overtime games and obviously came up big in Game 4 and just dominated the game. Montreal, get it together. What are we? What are we doing here? Too many games where you just don't get any pucks on net. It's just, they're not performing like a team that you would expect in a, this deep into the Stanley Cup playoffs. Do you like the playoffs this year? I'm seeing some people be real critical of the playoffs just because there's been a lot of sweeps, a lot of short series, a lot of domination, one-sided series. With the new format, or not even new format, but with the current format, everyone's expecting to have more competitive series. We're not getting Game 6s and Game 7s, except for Montreal in the first 2 rounds of their series. But out of the West, we just haven't seen a whole lot of series go that deep. I guess Anaheim and Vegas went 6 games. Colorado and Minnesota went 5 games. They didn't even get to 6 games there against the Wild. So anyway, Jason Bukala, man, looking forward to this conversation. We're getting to get into the draft. We'll find out who the Blues are going to take at 11, who they'll take at 15, what's it going to take to move up. And just because Drager said move up in the draft doesn't mean they have to move all the way up to number 2. But if they can get into the top 10, potentially even creep around the top 5, just outside or just inside, that would be fantastic to get just a player that they covet high into the draft. I will be in Buffalo at the NHL draft. I'm looking forward to that once again and covering the draft. So we'll have Jason coming up, man. Looking forward to that conversation with him and getting his take on everything. So much to get into with him. I'm looking forward to that conversation. All right, First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week. Have you gone to a First Community branch? Have you opened up an account? They've got so many different accounts for you. Youth savings accounts. If you have young kids who are learning about the process of saving money and the value of money, ask them about that. The holiday savings accounts, the vacation savings accounts, the Little Blues program, which is incredible. It's the best way to introduce your son or daughter into the game of ice hockey. They get all their equipment, which is included from skates to helmet, everything in between, even a stick. You get everything, including the skates. Like I said, that's an amazing deal. Gloves, nothing is missed when it comes to the equipment that you get. So you're ready to go for Little Blues. I recommend you do more than one session. You don't just have to do one session, but before you decide you're going to commit thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to having your son play the great game of ice hockey, see if they want to play it, they like it. And the Little Blues program is a great way to get that started. So do it and do it today with First Community. Great to have First Community with us as always. Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Download the app today. Get that free delivery if you live within 10 miles of a Dirt Cheap location. Don't sleep on the party goods. Get in there. Check out the incredible beer cooler. Best selection of beer, wine, and booze anywhere over at Dirt Cheap, baby. We love our friends over there at Dirt Cheap. The Wallace family taking St. Louis to the next level, one Dirt Cheap at a time. Download that app today. They've got great deals on Cardinal game days and Blues game days when the hockey season gets going as well. Dirt Cheap, fun, your one-stop party shop. I want to throw in one other thing, though. The prospect camp for this year, which usually takes place right after the draft, it's going to be different. From what I understand, it's not going to include anything on ice. It's all off ice. The whole thing is going to be off ice. So they're going to have experiences, learn the city, get to know the trainers, get to know the coaches, a lot of training, off-ice training, a lot of weightlifting and stuff like that, workouts, but nothing on the ice, which I don't have a problem with. I think sometimes you bring all these kids in. Some kids are recovering from injury. Some kids have been on the ice. Some kids haven't been on the ice. Some kids just finished playing. Some kids are coming in from overseas, from over in Europe. Some people live right here in town. And some have more advantages than others. And when you watch a 3-on-3 scrimmage, you can fall in love with the player pretty easily in a 3-on-3 scrimmage. And then you watch him in a 5-on-5 game, and it's a little bit of a different story. So, I do want to give a shout out to Claude Lemieux as well, as the news came out yesterday about his passing at 60 years of age. What a legend, man. What an absolute legend. He was great when he came on the Cam and Strick podcast. I've talked to him a lot over the years because he's been representing players, had some Blues players like Oscar Sundqvist, for an example. He was always so good to deal with, man, and just feel terrible for he and his family, man. And I'm thinking about all of you with the Lemieux family and all his former teammates who were certainly closely connected to Claude Lemieux. Blue Note Roofing, you see it right behind me, 314-920-5713. Call David Novak today. Let him take great care of you. 314-920-5713. Wind, hail damage, storm damage. You need a new roof, let him take great care of you. He'll talk pucks with you. Nobody does it like David Novak. 314-920-5713 for David Novak with Blue Note Roofing. Lordo's Diamonds, get that special someone something special. And do it from Lordo's Diamonds. Best selection of engagement rings. Men's jewelry too, man. Great selection of watches, chains, all of that. But they have incredible jewelry for that special person in your life. Maybe it's a graduate. Maybe it's an anniversary. Maybe it's a wedding. Maybe you're thinking for the holidays already. Birthday. Go in, say hi to Mike and Jimmy Lordo. Let them take great care of you. It doesn't matter if you walk in with a $100,000 budget or a $100 budget. You will get treated exactly the same. They are the best when it comes to customer service. Best selection right there in the heart of Ladue. You can't miss it, right next to Truffles. 314-432-8008 for Lordo's Diamonds. We do have a new sponsor, Mako. Mako in Kirkwood, man. These guys, you talk about getting it done. Locally owned and operated since 1982. So they've been around, man. 100 years of combined experience in the collision repair and auto painting industry. More than 75 years of combined experience at the Kirkwood Mako location. So here's what they are. They're a retail shop. They prioritize quality service and value. Their goal is all about complete customer satisfaction. That's all they care about. So they specialize in cosmetic collision repair. Did you hit something? Paint damage? They've got the auto painting as well. Fully capable of repairing any collision damage. So if you have dents or anything like that, take it in. And they'll take care of that for you. So they choose to focus on drivable hits. So that allows them to turn around the repairs as quickly as possible. So think about drivable hits. So you may have a dent or two, but your car's still drivable. Nothing that's like not drivable. Don't bring in your totaled car that it's mangled. You can't even like drive it. They want drivable repairs. So they've got great working relationship with all insurance providers too. Fleet management companies. So they work with everybody. Free written estimates, man. Get that estimate today. Just like you get from Blue Note Roofing, get a free written estimate. You can get one from Mako in Kirkwood as well. Schedule it on the phone, online, or just stop by Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 5. Mako in Kirkwood offers a best price guarantee, nationwide warranty on all Class A insurance repairs for as long as you own the vehicle. Welcome aboard, Mako in Kirkwood. Great to have you with us. All right, Jason Bukala, longtime scout. We're talking NHL draft on the other side when we come back. Thanks for hanging out on a Friday. It's our Friday tradition here on Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. All right, so people have been saying, hey, when are you going to get into the NHL draft? And I said, once we get closer to the Stanley Cup final, maybe we get into June, then we can really start focusing on the draft. And there's a lot of interest everywhere, especially with Toronto getting the first overall pick, Jason. Jason Bukala joins us. Jason, it's your reaction, first off, when Toronto wins the lottery and San Jose gets all the way up to number 2, man. And that caught a lot of people by surprise. Some people were like, wait, how does this happen? But at the end of the day, listen, I guess it's great for hockey because there's going to be a lot of interest in the draft this year.
Yeah, from that point of view, there's definitely a lot of interest. Thanks for having me on, Andy. It's I almost fell off my couch, to be perfectly honest. I didn't see that coming. You know, the Toronto Maple Leafs ending up with the first pick overall. San Jose, who, as you know, especially being out in the Western Conference, that's a team on the rise. And for them to land number 2, that gives them a lot of options. And it's going to be very curious to see what the San Jose Sharks do here because they have a plethora of talent up front, as you know, but they really do require a little bit more on the back end, like a right shot D, for example. But having said that, yeah, it's good for the draft. It's good for the eyes on the draft when a team like Toronto or Montreal wins first overall in the draft lottery. But I was certainly surprised.
You know, if you're San Jose, I know some people are saying, hey, they should move out of number 2. They should listen. And I'm curious your take on it, but and I know Celebrini has probably changed the mindset internally with that organization, being like, hey, we could probably win now. Because we've got, a top 5 player in the NHL now. Who knows where he's going to be in those rankings in the next year or two? He could be the best player in the league for all we know with Macklin Celebrini. But if you're San Jose, don't you just kind of have to stay the course a little bit? They've had top 5 picks with Will Smith. You get Celebrini. Now you get to add to that. You've got some other Misas there. I mean, how would you approach it if you're running that draft for San Jose?
Best player available still for me. I think that you want to keep adding to your war chest, if you will, for that day that you're going to be a contending outfit. Now, the thing about this is that the best player available is going to be either McKenna or Stenberg. And, does that naturally fit what they require? No, but it's very dangerous to just start drafting for need that high in the draft. Now, having said that, if they do want to go down that route, they're looking for a need at the top of the draft class. Well, then they get an option to trade back because the amount of defensemen that are available after the first three names go off the board, I'm assuming a centerman will go third. You're looking at the Chase Reeds, the Keaton Verhoffs, the Carson Carls, all these types of players, and but for me personally, what I would do, Strick, is I would draft the very best player available, and if it means that I trade out another internal asset that I've been developing to a team that has a plethora of defensemen in their pipeline already, maybe I add at Stenberg, for example, then I trade out one of my high-end prospects to add a live body from a team that's got room for a defenseman in their system to move out. So there's lots of ways to skin a cat, but you want to end up at that high of the draft with the very best player going forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to go back to your career so people who know, because you obviously worked a long time with Nashville, long time in Florida. Do you miss the scout? Do you miss I used to say to Jarmo Kekalainen for forever when he was running the amateur side here in St. Louis, hey, every morning of the draft, I would send him a text, it's your Super Bowl today, It's like, this is what you live for when you're an amateur scout. Do you miss being in the thick of it from that standpoint, or do you love being the analyst on the outside and still breaking it down?
You know what? This transition has been really refreshing for me, but I'd be lying to you if I told you, like, we're all competitive people who are involved in sports, right? So that rush that you get building towards the draft, you can't replicate that in anything I think you do. I mean, once you've been an athlete, a coach, a director of scouting, and then National Hockey League, you miss some of those moments for certain. But I have to say that on this side of the ledger, it's been really refreshing. I do a lot of pro and amateur, and I've been able to spread my wings and opine on a lot of different things to a lot of different people like yourself. And it's like people are throwing rocks at a glass house, and I can take that, no problem. I'm just trying to give them an inside look at the process more than anything else, and it's been refreshing.
You look at Florida, you say, well, how did they become a Stanley Cup champion, Well, it's like you get Barkov second overall, even
Yeah.
Ekblad obviously was a big part of it, although Draisaitl was in that draft, and I'm curious your take on some of these. Um, it's just really amazing how you build towards becoming a championship team. Were you involved with the Barkov draft? Were you in Florida yet, or were you still in Nashville?
Yeah, I was. No, I was. That was one of my first three drafts in Florida. My first draft was the Mike Matheson draft in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, and we took him 23rd overall. And that one was interesting because Dale Tal and Jimmy Rutherford, Pittsburgh, their table was right beside us on the draft floor, and we also were kind of had some interest in another player at the time, and we thought he was going to go, and this is the fun of the draft. So Dale and Jimmy are tight, and Dale leans over to Jimmy to move up one spot in the draft, and Jimmy says, "No, we got our guy here." And their guy ended up being Oli Mata, and our guy ended up being Matheson. You can skin a cat a variety of ways, but we still ended up with our guy, is what I'm trying to tell you. So that was my first draft. The Barkov one in New Jersey, I think you'll probably remember that one. That was a lockout year, so it was a full 1 day extravaganza. Long day in New Jersey, but a fun day. And as soon as Patrick Waugh got named head coach of the Colorado Avalanche coming out of the Quebec League, you knew he was going to take McKinnon. So we were all over Barkov. But having said that, I still think there's a lot of analysts that believe, and I'm on this side of the legend now, but a lot of analysts who believe we might still go Seth Jones, the big right shot D. And I guess we did it in reverse order. We went Barkov, and then we went Ekblad a year later, and it worked out for our franchise.
Yeah, I saw a clip about that. People were being listen, and this is, and I'm never critical of analysts at the draft. It's one of the hardest things to do because you're putting yourself out there, you're giving your opinion, and the Monday morning quarterback is always going to come back and say either you're an idiot or you're a genius, one way or the next. But you're trying to project 18-year-old kids, which is difficult to do. And a lot of people were surprised you guys took Barkov over Seth Jones at the time of the draft. And I go back to even when the Blues took TJ Oshie late in the first round, I remember people being like, oh my God, he's rated in the 80s. This is such a stretch. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And Yarmo said to me at the draft, I'll never forget, he said, hey, Tell anybody who's questioning my pick to come see me in 5 years. That's what Yarmo said, you know?
Yeah.
But to walk us through the Seth Jones versus Barkov kind of dilemma there, that
Yeah.
conversation.
It was, it was, and Jonathan Drouin was in the mix there too. He
Yeah.
went, it's at Tampa Bay third, and Jones fell to Nashville at four. I can tell you that the build up towards Dale Palin's firm belief was that we were going to build a franchise through the middle of the ice. It worked in Chicago for him. We were trying to make it work for us in Florida, and it eventually did work. So building it through the middle of the ice meant that we were either going to target Barkov or Jones. When we were staying at the Westin Times Square, we had the final day before the draft, the final meetings with the players, the prospects. Barkov just came in and strict this kid. Even then, like you see him how stoic he is now as a captain in the National Hockey League. He was already a pro, and I'm not suggesting for a second that Jones wasn't going to be a pro. But when you meet somebody for the final time and they walk out of the room and it's like, wow, like that. You just can't go past that. Like, it's just special. He was. And it surprised some people. I'll tell you this, as soon as the McKinnon went off the board, our phone was ringing off the hook. Like, people wanted to get to two very, very badly, including Nashville. And, all of those guys to a different degree have worked out in a different manner. But, Barkov's a very special player, as you know, that these guys go come. I think he's a future Hall of Famer. If he cheated the game just a little bit, like just cheated the game, he'd be an over 100-point guy every year. He really would be, but he doesn't. He's a complete player.
Yeah, no doubt. And you guys made the right pick, and he's a great person too. So I mean, all around, you see what he's doing in that community too in Florida. I'm not going to go year by year, but I am curious because Ekblad goes first overall, and he was a man child, right? I mean, you go back and watch him play junior, just so physically gifted. Did you expect Draisaitl to evolve into the generational talent that he is today? Because he actually spent some time in the minors, didn't he?
Yeah, the thing with Leon at the time, so playing in the Western Hockey League in Prince Albert, first of all, I gave him a lot of credit for going to Prince Albert because Prince Albert, for people who aren't aware in the Western Hockey League, it's kind of a remote area of that league. And to come as a European prospect to go play there from the big ice it's a real small, tight building there to play in. I think that had some emotional challenges attached to it, so it spoke to his maturity. So you start ticking off boxes similar to like the Barkov or the Ekblad. As you said, Ekblad was already a man-child. He had exceptional status in the Ontario Hockey League. We were at the stage that we wanted to add, sticking to Dale's plan, a right shot D if we could, and that was going to be Ekblad. I will openly admit, and this is the beauty of hindsight, that, and maybe you even see it to this day, there was some stop and go in Draisaitl's game, even though he was highly productive at the junior level. And when he stopped and he hadn't developed enough man strength yet, we were a little bit curious about how his skating was going to translate to the NHL level in relation to his offensive potential. Clearly it's worked. It's fine. This guy is one of the best players in the world. But even when you watch him in Edmonton, you can see where, as a young person, you can see how his mechanics might have been, kind of curious to us a little bit. Having said all that, he's had a hell of a career. He'll probably be a Hall of Famer as well. But, Ekblad's been a staple there in Florida. He's won a couple of cups. And, those two picks, they've stayed a Florida Panther for the entirety of their career. And, I think our entire scouting staff and Dale Talon should be proud of that. That was, it was a job well done.
Give me one pick before we move on that you're most proud of, that you really keyed in on this guy early, stuck with him, was kind of off the radar. I think of a guy like Colton Parayko here in St. Louis, who was a third-round pick. They kind of really went out of their way to keep it a secret that they were in on this kid,
Yeah.
And I'm curious, you can comment on that too, but give me a guy that you can maybe have a similar story and talk about that.
Well, I'm going to tell you the story because this is, I think you might know where we're going with this at the end of it. It is a New Jersey draft as well, by the way. And so we get to the 7th round, we don't have a pick. And Scott Luce, Aaron Janelle, and I look over at Dale and we say, Burge, and Montreal Canadiens, Burge and Dale are tight from the Chicago days. You tell them, give Burge a call. We want that 7th round pick. We don't have a pick. And just tell them we'll flip our 7th from next year to him. We'll just flip 7th rounders, So we call Burge, and Burge is like, yeah, well, my list is run dry. No problem. We'll give you the 7th. And we're like, thank you. No problem. You can have our 7th next year. We draft Mackenzie Weegar, the 5th last pick of the draft. We were sitting on him. He played with McKinnon that year in Halifax. They won the Memorial Cup. He was a draft +1. He was an underdog all the way through. Should have been in the Ontario Hockey League. Went through the Ontario Hockey League as a free agent. Ends up in Halifax. Like the story strict to get to where he is today, or any like his projection as a pro and his trajectory, working his way through our system. It is a phenomenal story, right? Those guys, those late bloomers, and that's the one we're most proud of. I mean, if you look at that, whenever you can get something deep in the draft, and he can just go on. He's going to play 1,000 games probably by the time he's done. He's part of a huge trade with the Calgary Flames that enabled Bill Zito to land to Chuck in Florida, and that's a good one. That was one that we're super proud of for sure.
Yeah, no, I love those stories. All right, so Gavin McKenna, he does an interview yesterday, and some people are critical on social media, like they always are, Jason. Like everyone's always critical. I always tell eh, people, I don't go to social media to find something positive about somebody because nobody says anything positive. It's always negative, right? But the hat backwards, the tattoos, like as a scout, and when you're trying to make this level of decision now, like we're talking first overall pick, does that have any factor whatsoever? Can you look past that and say it's generational? These are young kids. That's just the way they are. You can't judge a player based on that, or how would you react to it?
Yeah, I'm a little bit like I'm 55 years old, so I've still got that old school in me, right? Like that pit in my stomach. But you also have to look at it this way. Do you think that he went to the game in Kelowna knowing, you know how this works? Sometimes
Yeah.
they see somebody at a game, like he's just there with his buddies. They're out for dinner before doing whatever, and he goes to the game and they grab him. And you know what's he going to do now? Is he got to go get hair and makeup and put a suit on? I mean, let's be realistic here a little bit to a degree. If he had known ahead of time, would I like for it to look a little differently? Yeah, I would for sure. But you know, if he ends up being selected by Toronto or whoever ends up getting him, San Jose, Vancouver, it doesn't matter. That's not going to be the look. The player development crew will get a hold of him, and it's going to be fine. At the end of the day, it is a generational thing. Everything's different than when I was growing up, when you were growing up, and there's noise around these top prospects. Everybody's trying to poke holes in them. I'll wait until I meet him next week at the combine in person to judge. But if you're going to grab some young person out of the stands and have an interview with him on national TV live, it is what it is. Why are we being so critical on that young person? I don't think that's fair.
All right, that's well said, and I would agree with you there. But speaking of McKenna, and I try to catch a couple college games live every year. Saw Michigan play Wisconsin this year. I mean, like, try to catch a game or two if I can live. I mean, there's something to be said. I love the atmosphere of college hockey. Has it shifted now? Do people truly understand the level that we're seeing with NCAA hockey? Because we look at numbers. If McKenna played in the WHL this past season, he'd probably have 145, 150 points. He'd have the same hype as Connor Bedard, probably coming out of the dub. But he went and played college, still over a point per game guy as a 17/18-year-old, which is super impressive. Not many guys can say they do that. So how do you look at production at the NCAA level versus major junior for draft age, draft eligible players?
Well, the list is enormous. I mean, it's enormous. So if he would have went back to the Western Hockey League, no doubt, let's call it 150 points as a round number. Like Michael Misa the year before, I believe in Saginaw, he might add 162 points, whatever he had. I mean, 62 goals or 64 goals, right? Like it's when you are in major junior hockey and you're at home, especially, and if your coach is worth his salt, and they're all great coaches, and you're chasing a game, you're getting a matchup against a third line or a fourth line on home ice. And what are they? They're 16 years old, right? 17 years old. When you go play at Penn State and you go into Michigan or Ohio State or Michigan State, for example, and you get into the 3 or the 4, well, what are those guys? They're grizzled 23-year-olds. It's a completely different animal. It's men against boys at that point. So I was really impressed with how he evolved, McKenna. The offensive game is there. He's going to be a top end talent in the National Hockey League. It's going to take time because he needs to add weight and strength. But you know what he has that you can't teach? He's got that offensive brain, right? You see it. You see guys that come through. They either have it or they don't. You can't teach offense. You can coach it up drill wise and transitional stuff and blah blah blah. But you can't really teach puck touch. You can't teach hockey sense in the offensive zone, and he has small area escapability. Like he's got the brain to make plays through people where he doesn't have to engage physically. So all that stuff took some time to really hit its stride, and then in the back half it just did. Like 33 points, I think, in his last 18 games or something like that. He had an 8-point game one night. But on the defensive side, that's still coming strict. And the thing about defensive commitment, that's a choice. Like anybody can get buttoned up defensively. Anybody can track, right? A coach can make like Jacques Lemaire could turn somebody into like Stephane Richer back in the day. A wild gunslinger. He could turn him into a trapping checker. And I'm not worried about his trajectory that way. He'll never be perfect defensively. He'll just need to be average, though, right? That's all you need because the offense will take over. But as far as the compete against college players, I'm glad you went to watch games live because I think people should take some time. Those same people in social media circles who want to criticize you or I for on both sides of the ledger. Me for saying that, okay, I need him to be more buttoned up defensively and do this, be above the play without the puck, like little things. And then other people who give the kid too much credit for too much offense. Go watch a game. Go watch a game and really watch it. Don't watch it as a fan. Like really watch it and ask yourself the same questions that we're trying to present for answers.
Yeah. I saw Denver play live this past year. I mean, early in the year, they weren't the same team that they were at the end of the year. I can tell you that. I mean, they just really got better throughout the course of the season. So, yeah, I love watching college hockey. If I'm ever out of town, in town where there's a college game, I'll try to make it for sure. So, who's the best defenseman in the draft?
Well, that is such a loaded question because I'm legitimately splitting hairs on it. I'm going to tell you that I think that the best defenseman, but he's a left shot, might be Carson Carls. I'm leaning that way with he plays in Prince George of the WHL. So I'll like him back to my Nashville days, and I'll throw a couple names at you. Like remember when Dan Hamhuis and Ryan Suter? So I'm trying to create a player by molding those two eggs together.
Yeah.
So Suter, 28 minutes a night, and you got a cup of coffee with him there towards the end of his career in St. Louis. But remember when he was in Nash? I mean, him and Weber together coming through, and then Dan Hamhuis, who had better than secondary offense, but he also was a little bit of a silent assassin. Like he can't Hammer could play mean when he needed to as well. I think that Carlos is kind of somewhere in there. I think Chase Reed's probably going to go first, the right shot defenseman out of Sault Ste. Marie. He's similar to McKenna and Stenberg that they're late birthdays. So they've got some runway on guys because Keaton Bearhoff, like think about it this way, at 17 years old, being a right shot defenseman in North Dakota, playing in that conference against teams like Denver, like that's a heavy, heavy lift, 6'4". Like he reminds me a lot of Athlete. Like he really does, like a lot of the same. And I think if he would have stayed a major junior, he had 21 goals a year ago in Victoria. So when we start saying about McKenna 150 points, maybe if he stayed in medicine at, what would Verhoff's statistical analysis look like if he didn't go to Nodak last year? Like call it 25 tucks and I don't know, 70 points. You know what I mean? So it's all part of the process. I'm splitting hairs on all three of those guys.
Yeah.
But my gut as I sit here today tells me that if Carlos is the right shot, I think he'd be the first one to go.
Yeah, and Chase Reed, I believe he's going to Michigan State next year, correct? Is he the one?
He is,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So he'll be playing some college hockey next year. All right, so the Blues are at 11 and 15. They also have Colorado's pick late in the first. And we'll see what they do if they're able to, even attach a roster player and really make some significant noise and a real play here at the draft to move up. And how far can they get up in the draft remains to be seen. Or they may just stand pat and pick at 11 and 15. If they stay at 11 and 15, what are we talking? We're talking legit quality player. Because sometimes you go into these drafts and you talk to scouts and they'll be like, it's really heavy in the top 10, then there's a drop off. Some people say, well, it's a deep draft. Well, where are we at this year? What kind of talent could the Blues be getting at 11 and 15?
Really good. Like really good. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think the St. Louis Blues have had two picks inside the top 16 in the history of the franchise. I could be wrong on that, but
they had Schwartz and Tarasenko. They 14 and 16. That was a few years back, but they traded up they traded the defenseman that they took. I'm forgetting his name the year before to get that second first-round pick. But they took Schwartz and Tarasenko, which isn't bad to get those two guys in the first round of 14 and 16,
Great. And you know what you just did there? You just slid in a really neat statement how they traded out a pick from the year before to get a body. And that's what I was saying about San Jose earlier. Like if they sat on Stenberg, maybe they trade a Misa out to get like a live right shot defenseman somewhere in the league. But I digress. That's all part of the process. At 11, I really think that if they wanted to go defenseman, that they could be legitimately staring at a guy like a Daxon Rudolph from Prince Albert. Pardon me. And I was going to say Prince George there from Prince Albert. Another big right shot defenseman who, by the way, would be the heir apparent to a Colton Parayko, but more offense. So he'd be somewhere between Peter Angelo and Parayko in my estimation. Okay, offensively somewhere in there, but a big rig, right? Like 6 foot, almost 6'4", 209 pounds. He pushes back. His defensive route he needs some work, okay? But he's got the range and he's got the body type that you can work on that kind of thing. Another guy in that, Albert Smith is highly ranked, but my gut feeling is that Smith might be in that range too. The Latvian, the big left shot Latvian defenseman. So, pick your poison there. When you get into the 15, if they go, depending on what they want here, there's going to be another defenseman there, Ryan Lynn from the Vancouver Giants. He's a right shot. He's a power play quarterback. He's a type of guy that in the future, he's not light. He's really evolved. So at the under 18 World in Slovakia recently, his presence gapping up and killing plays in the neutral zone and his physicality when guys were in his lane was much improved. And I like that about him. He doesn't have to be a punisher at the NHL level, but he can't be a pushover either, right? Especially if you're that guy who transports pucks. But maybe they want to go with like a shooter like JP Hurlburt from the Kamloops Blazers at 15. Would they step up on that? And he had an unbelievable. He's a guy that went from the program to major junior instead of a lot of the guys that were kind of going the other way, the south of the border. And he lit up the Western Hockey. He could play the middle. He could play the wing.
Yeah, I think he scored over 40 goals, something like that. This
47 tucks. And, could he be, could he be like a Robert Thomas later on? I don't know. Maybe these are some of the conversations that you would certainly have in your war room.
If that Albert Smith falls to 11, he played in the Olympics and the World Juniors this past year, correct? I mean, and I remember watching him in the Olympics, and they're like, he's draft eligible. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, this kid.
This kid played more hockey than anybody. Like he played in Liga, okay, in Finland's top league. He played at the J20 for a little bit in Finland. Then he got loaned out to the German league, the Dell, after the Olympics. But in between there, World Juniors, Olympics, and now World Championships. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a prospect play more hockey than Albert Smith did this year. And again, that's a man-child, right? 6'3", over 210 pounds. What's he going to be? I think he's a two-way guy. I think he's a secondary power play guy. He can walk the blue line to open up lanes to either distribute to the flank or rip it at the net. But you know what? Geez, his volume of play and his maturity, it definitely stands out for me. So there's going to be some teams that are going to value him higher than that. I've got him like right around 9 or 10. Same with Dax Rudolph. So we'll see.
Is there a player that people are excited about? That's a two-part question here. That you could see maybe drop a little bit. And in hockey, how much value is there in the combine? In football,
Right.
Obviously, it's a big deal. You hear about the measurables all the time. How much weight do NHL teams, you think, put into the combine and how a player tests in the combine?
Well, I think that you have to be realistic. So I know that my approach to the combine as a director, when I would go watch the workouts, we'd have our sports science guys there, obviously. All I wanted them to do, I'd approach it like scouting a hockey game. Just work as hard as you can. Because look at Albert Smith. If a guy like Albert Smith comes in, he won't test. But if a guy like Albert Smith ever came in and tested with all that hockey he's played, like common sense has got to prevail. How tired is this kid, right? Like he's going to get on the Wingate. He's going to be puking in a bucket and I got to hold him responsible for that. That's ridiculous. So, but then you get a guy like McKenna who just decided not to go to the World Championships along with Team Canada. I don't know what the conversation was. He didn't go. Stenberg did. Now he's been working out, trying to get stronger in preparation. Now I want to see what he's done in those 2 months because he does have to add strength and weight. So it's just a commitment thing there. But here's where sports science comes into it because his trainer might have said, we need to have more core strength. Like when Connor Bedard came through, and I'm sure you've seen Connor, interviewing or seen him in person, his upper body a couple years ago, tiny, like a teenager's body, right? But his lower half,
Jack.
his lower, yeah, he's jacked now, but his lower half, even then, he had like that Sidney Crosby, rear end and legs and stuff, so you could see that it was going to be possible. It's a long answer to you. I want them to compete hard. I hold them more in the interview process. I just want them to be natural, and I want to get to know them a bit more and see how how they're going to fit into our culture more than anything else.
Yeah, I think it was Sam Bennett who couldn't do a pull up, right? But he's a
Yeah.
fierce competitor on the ice. You know what I mean? Like, so it doesn't tell everything. What do you think of McKenna not going to the World Championships? Is that a red flag? Like, why wouldn't he go?
Yeah, I would have preferred for him to be there, personally. I guess that would be my wish. But is it going to affect my long lens on this? Like that, how irresponsible would that be? Like if I hold him for this 2-week tournament and say, "Oh, he's gonna fall on my draft list because of that." Yeah, I wish he was there. For me personally, being a competitive person, if I know that the guy that I'm vying for first overall, call it Stenberg, is going, and you saw how Ivar Stenberg performed for Sweden here at the World Championships. If I know that somebody who could take my slot, I'm just wired differently. I'd be like, I got to go there and prove it. Like that's how I would approach it. But that's without me knowing a lot of things. Like he could have been nicked up a little bit. He could have been like he was away at Penn State, which is a long way from home. There's a lot of factors in there. So yeah, I wish he was there. He wasn't. But I'll tell you what, 5 years from now, if he's hoisting a Stanley Cup over the head of whatever team he plays, is anybody going to care that he didn't go to the World Championships in 2026?
Yeah, I know. Two more things for you. I know you got to go. Ivar Stenberg. I watch him play in the World Championships, and I've really enjoyed watching the Worlds this year for whatever reason. Maybe because Canada's team is stacked and USA isn't, but it's made it maybe a little more intrigue, I guess, to watch some of these games. But Stenberg, he's not a guy that's just going to wow you, I feel like. You watch the games, he's not going end to end. He's not doing some crazy, stick handling through everybody. But it doesn't tell the whole story of who he is. Like, is he the safest pick? If I feel like he's a safer pick, but long term, who's got the better career? I think that one's a little more of a challenge between he and McKenna. And could anybody jump up ahead of those two? Is there a third player that is a potential first overall pick or no?
No, I don't think that there is. I mean, some people are going to try and argue that, Caleb Malhotra, there's a tier. Without going into all kinds of detail, there's a tier, and the top tier has 2 players on it. Okay. And then the second tier's got 4 or 5 guys. So I can't, the body of work that I put into this process doesn't allow me to say that there is. It's not fair to both kids, so I'm not going to do that. But having said that about Stenberg, you're bang on. You're absolutely right. What you get out of Stenberg is like, think about I've used it, so I'm just going to keep saying it. He has the hockey sense of Alexander Barkov as a winger. Okay, so you're not going to notice a lot of this, a lot of things sometimes, but for the good of the team, the good of the process, the good of the result, he's not going to cough up a puck in the wrong time. He's going to be on the right side of his check defensively. He's going to be off the puck with his elite hockey sense, finding quiet ice to go to work offensively. I'll put it to you this way. McKenna could be 100-point guy. He could be, okay? But he'll be a 0 on the plus-minus scale, and I'm not going to get into that discussion. I'm just giving you an example on the plus-minus scale, right? Where Stenberg might have 85 points, and he'll be a plus 25. Wow. So which guy do you want? They're both going to bring something unique to your team. Stenberg's just a little bit more of a complete player, that's all.
And Porter Martone, who you see come in like this year, like with Philly, like some of these guys, they just translate to the NHL like it's nothing, and so the expectations can't always be there. But you see both those guys in the NHL next year, right? McKenna and Stenberg, they're probably going to be in the NHL, right?
I would imagine. So, yeah, I can't see McKenna going back to college hockey, especially if he goes first overall. And Stenberg's ready. Like his results in the FHL this year were historic. He was the third highest scoring draft eligible player ever in the FHL. And he produced, both these guys are late birthdays too. So let's back to that. And they're a year ahead of some of these other guys. So I think that's a factor, they're a little bit older. I'll give you an example, like Wyatt Cullen. Wyatt Cullen might be right in the Blues wheelhouse with the Colorado pick, or they might value him as much in the middle of the draft. Like they could take him with 15 for all I know, because he's got that kind of talent. His dad was a hell of a player, as you remember. Now, the thing with Wyatt Cullen, he's a September 8th birthday, strict 2000. He's 7 days away from not even being eligible for this draft. That matters, right? That matters.
Who you taking first overall?
Stenberg. I'm taking Stenberg, and and I'm doing it without hesitation. And that is not without. I'm not insulting McKenna at all but if I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs and how they built it last time didn't work necessarily for where they wanted to go as a team, I think this is a unique opportunity to do it a little bit differently and still hit a home run.
Yeah. All right. Listen, man, great stuff. Hopefully I'll run into you at the draft in Buffalo, and if you don't mind, I'd like to do this again, maybe if we can beforehand.
Let's
There's
do
just
it.
so much interest, obviously, with the Blues having three first round picks, and obviously all the stuff going on with McKenna and Stenberg. It's always exciting around this time of year, so I'm looking forward to it. And great stuff, man. I appreciate it. Go to your meeting. You got a meeting to do, and you got more stuff. When's your final rankings coming out?
Final ranking is coming out after the combine. So I think if you're up for it, let's reconvene after the combine.
Yeah.
Talk about some of my observations and where those top three Blues picks might land with those final rankings.
Yeah, definitely up for it. All right, Jason. I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for doing this.
All right, sir. It's nice to be with you. Thank you, sir.
Likewise. Take care. All right, so that was Jason Bukala. And I may have his last. I think I said Bukala before. Now I'm saying Bukala. So if I'm saying it wrong, well, I got to write one way or the other. Great stuff, great insight, great knowledge, great information, and take it for what you will. And then we'll see where we go. We'll have other people coming on too as we get closer and closer to the draft. But love that conversation with Jason. St. Louis Lawn Care. And this is who cuts my grass each and every week. I mean, let me tell you this with St. Louis Lawn Care. They are so good, and they do so many different things with the options that they have when it comes to cutting your lawn, right? So with St. Louis Lawn Care, man, these guys cut my grass, my house, my grass, my yard. It looks like Petco Park, man. These guys are so good. Get all the lines in there. It's so nice. The options are endless. Lawn mowing, they've got the fertilizer program, which is always important. It's a custom fertilizer program, more than one size fits all. So they customize it to your yard. Sod installation, if you need that. Snow removal, mulch, aeration, the overseeding, leaf removal, which we all need. But how about this? The mosquito and bug control. Get those bugs out of your damn yard. I'm outside. We got the fire going last night. No bugs. No bugs in my yard. Let them cut your grass. Let them take great care of you. St. Louis Lawn Care. They've got new ownership as well. So, Brendan, call them. Let them take care of you. 314-974-5911. 314-974-5911. And of course, First Community, which brings us Hockey Sense each and every week. First Community. We love our friends over there at First Community. They have that new location down in South County off Tesson Ferry. Check that out. But they also have the best credit unions going. That's right. Winning isn't everything, but it sure is nice. First Community just announced as a winner of America's Best Regional Credit Unions by Newsweek Magazine and Plant A Insights Group. Over 60,000 people were surveyed. Included over 140,000 reviews of regional banks and credit unions. And only one credit union in St. Louis received this honor, and there's a reason for that. Go find out why for yourself. Big shout out to First Community. I'm Andy Strickland. This is Hockey Sense, live from Half Coast Studios, and brought to you by First Community. All right, I hope you enjoyed today's show. Great stuff as always with our friends Jason Bukala from Sportsnet, longtime director of amateur scouting for both the Nashville Predators and the Florida Panthers. Good stuff, man. The Blues are going to get a good player at 11. They'll get a good player at 15. We'll see if they're packaging something and what they do and if they're able to move up, and if so, how far they're able to move up. So we'll looking forward to the draft. We'll have more draft talk coming up on Hockey Sense as we get closer to Buffalo, June 25th, right? Or is it 26th, 27th? I know I'm going to Buffalo, I think, on the 25th. So maybe my dates are a little bit off. First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week. We know that. Sign your son or daughter up for a Little Blues program. Find an account that works for you and find a branch that's close to you. First Community. Blue Note Roofing, 314-920-5713. Call David Novak today. Easy Tiger Cannabis. Top shelf, EasyTigerAZ.com. If you have medical issues, pain, sleep issues, recreational use, whatever it is you're looking for, you can find it with EasyTigerAZ.com. Easy Tiger, baby. Located in Arizona, soon to be nationwide, but they will ship to your front door. Check out the website. They've got great apparel. They are truly top shelf when it comes to the cannabis industry. EasyTigerAZ.com. St. Louis Lawn Care, get your lawn set up. Go to stlouislawncare.com, stlawncare.com. Get the most and the best professionals cutting your grass and taking care of your lawn. So when people come over, they're like, wow, who cut your grass? Why does your grass look so green? How come you don't have any leaves all over the place? Why does everything look so nice? Well, STL Lawn Care is the reason why, and we all know that. Lordo's Diamonds, dirt cheap, fun, your one-stop party shop. Everybody who helps us bring hockey sense on each and every week. And you heard me talk about Mako in Kirkwood. Check them out. You have any repairs that need to be made, dents, paint issues, there's only one place to go, and that's Mako in Kirkwood. All right, for Aiden, for Jason Bukala, for Jamal Mayers, I'm Andy Strickland, reminding you to keep your head up and your stick on the ice. We will do it again next Friday, as we always do, for another edition of Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Hope you enjoyed the show today. Enjoy the rest of the Eastern Conference Final, and then, of course, the Stanley Cup Final right around the corner that starts next Tuesday, I believe. Have a great weekend, everybody.